whispers in the dark. The old house on Elm Street had always been shrouded in mystery. Its weathered facade loomed over the neighborhood like a specter from a bygone era. Its windows dark and empty, its secrets buried deep within its crumbling walls. Some said it was haunted, cursed by the spirits of those who had died within its confines. Others whispered of darker things, of rituals and sacrifices performed in the dead of night. But Emily didn't believe in such superstitions. She had lived in the house her entire life, and though she had heard the stories, she had never once felt afraid. She was a rational woman, a scientist, who scoffed at the idea of ghosts and ghouls. Yet, as she sat alone in the living room on that fateful night, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss, that some malevolent presence lurked in the shadows, waiting to reveal itself. And so, as the clock struck midnight and the darkness closed in around her, Emily found herself embarking on a journey into the unknown. A journey that would test her beliefs, her sanity, and her very soul. The old house on the corner of Elm Street stood still in the dead of night, a sentinel guarding its secrets with an eerie silence. The moon hung low, casting long shadows that danced across the creaking floorboards. Emily sat alone in the living room, her heart pounding in her chest as she listened to the ticking of the grandfather clock, each chime echoing through the empty halls. It was midnight, the witching hour, when the veil between the living and the dead was said to be thinnest. But Emily didn't believe in such superstitions. She was a rational woman, a scientist, who scoffed at the idea of ghosts and ghouls. Yet, as she sat there in the dim light, a sense of unease washed over her like a cold shiver down her spine. She tried to shake off the feeling, telling herself it was just her imagination playing tricks on her. But then she heard it, faint at first, like a whisper carried on the wind. Emily froze, her breath catching in her throat as she strained to listen. There it was again, a soft murmur that seemed to emanate from the very walls themselves. Her hands trembling, Emily rose from her chair and tiptoed across the room, her footsteps barely making a sound on the worn carpet. She pressed her ear against the wall, straining to make out the words. They were indistinct at first, like the murmuring of a distant stream. But as she listened, they grew louder, more coherent. "Emily," the voice whispered, sending a chill down her spine. "Emily, can you hear me?" It was a man's voice, deep and resonant, yet tinged with a hint of desperation. Emily's blood ran cold as she realized the voice was coming from the basement below. She had never been down there, had always avoided it like the plague. But now, curiosity and fear warred within her, driving her to investigate. With trembling hands, she made her way to the basement door, her heart pounding in her chest like a drumbeat. She hesitated for a moment, her hand hovering over the doorknob, before finally summoning the courage to turn it. The door swung open on rusty hinges, revealing a staircase that disappeared into the darkness below. Emily descended slowly, her footsteps echoing off the stone walls. The air grew colder with each step, sending goosebumps prickling across her skin. And then, at the bottom of the stairs, she saw it. A flickering light, dancing like a will-o'-the-wisp in the depths of the cellar. She approached cautiously, her heart hammering in her chest. As she drew closer, she saw that the light was emanating from a single candle, its flame guttering in the stale air. And there, kneeling beside it, was a figure shrouded in darkness. "Who are you?" Emily demanded, her voice trembling with fear. The figure looked up, and Emily recoiled in horror as she saw its face. It was a man, or what was left of one, his features twisted and contorted in agony. His eyes were sunken pits, devoid of life, yet they seemed to bore into her soul with a malevolent intensity. "I am trapped," the man whispered, his voice a hoarse rasp. "Trapped between worlds, condemned to wander these halls for all eternity." Emily took a step back, her mind reeling with disbelief. This couldn't be happening. It had to be some kind of trick, a figment of her overactive imagination. But deep down, she knew the truth. The man before her was no figment, no mere apparition. He was real, as real as the fear that gripped her heart. "What do you want from me?" she whispered, her voice barely audible above the pounding of her own heartbeat. The man reached out a hand. His fingers gnarled and twisted like the branches of a dead tree. "Help me," he pleaded, his voice a desperate plea. "Help me find peace." Emily hesitated, her mind racing with 1,000 thoughts. She could turn and run, flee from this nightmare, and never look back. But something held her back, something deep within her soul that whispered of duty and compassion. With a trembling hand, she reached out and grasped the man's hand in her own. And in that moment, she felt a surge of power, a warmth that spread from her fingertips to the very core of her being. She closed her eyes and whispered a prayer, a plea to whatever gods may be listening to grant this tortured soul the peace he so desperately sought. And then, in the blink of an eye, it was over. The man's form shimmered and faded, dissolving into the darkness like smoke on the wind. Emily opened her eyes and found herself alone once more, the candle flickering in the still air. She stood there for a long moment, her mind reeling with disbelief. Had it all been a dream, a trick of the mind? Or had she truly witnessed something beyond the realm of mortal understanding? She may never know the answer, but one thing was certain. She would never forget the whispers in the dark, the night when she came face to face with the unknown. And as she climbed the stairs and closed the door behind her, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched, that somewhere in the shadows, the man she had helped still lingered, his restless spirit bound to the house for all eternity. But whether he was friend or foe, angel or demon, Emily could not say. All she knew was that some mysteries were best left unsolved, some secrets best left buried in the darkness where they belonged. For in the end, it is not the fear of the unknown that haunts us, but the knowledge that some things are better left unseen, unheard, and unremembered. And as Emily turned out the lights and retreated to the safety of her bed, she whispered a silent prayer to the night, a prayer for peace, for solace, and for the strength to face whatever horrors may lie beyond the threshold of her own understanding. But deep down, she knew that some things were beyond even her control, some fears too primal, too ancient, to ever truly be banished from the human heart. And so, as the clock struck midnight and the darkness closed in around her, Emily closed her eyes and surrendered to the embrace of sleep, knowing that whatever dreams may come, she would face them with courage, with defiance, and with the knowledge that she was never truly alone in the dark. As the first light of dawn crept through the curtains, Emily awoke to find herself bathed in a warm glow, the events of the previous night already fading from her memory like a half-remembered dream. She rose from her bed and made her way to the window, gazing out at the world beyond with a newfound sense of wonder and awe. The old house on Elm Street stood silent and still in the early morning light, its secrets once again hidden from prying eyes. And though Emily knew that some mysteries were best left unsolved, she couldn't help but feel a sense of gratitude for the experience, for the glimpse into the unknown that had opened her eyes to the wonders of the world. For in the end, it is not the fear of the unknown that haunts us, but the knowledge that some things are better left unseen, unheard, and unremembered. And as Emily watched the sun rise on a new day, she knew that whatever trials may come, she would face them with courage, with defiance, and with the knowledge that she was never truly alone in the dark.